All right, all
Welcome
right.
to Creative Collection. We here.
Yes, yes. We are here. It's Creative Collection. We just decided to get into a very important topic. This episode is going to be called Psychological Justice. And we are here with our special guest, Aisha Augusta Parham. Dr. Aisha, that is.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to talk about psychological justice today.
Yeah, I'm definitely glad to speak about this topic. I like the way you put the phrase together, the psychological justice, because I do think it is something that needs to be justified. Because psychologically, we are, on the lowest vibration, probably, and probably on the most ignorant, patterns and stuff like that is going on psychologically. We always thinking negative first. We're not thinking positive. We're not getting to the enlightenment and going through the process that we need to properly. So this definitely needs to be talked about.
So it definitely needs to be talked about. So I appreciate you for being here with us, Dr. Aisha.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. We like to dive right into questions. Before we get to the questions, I just want to say shout out to all the sponsors. They're gonna be up on the screen. We're not gonna shout them all out. So shout out to all of y'all. We appreciate y'all for supporting us and everything like that. You could give a little briefing on yourself and everything like that. You could take the floor for a second, give a little briefing on yourself. Just a
Okay.
little bit. I know it could probably get lengthy, but you could give a little something, let them know you are a little bit.
Yes. Well, my name is Dr. Aisha Augusta Parham. I have a PhD in counseling psychology. So that's at like the core of the work that I do. I've shifted a lot of my focal interest professionally related to racial trauma. So you can see that a lot on my platforms. But I am a DE&I expert, like I said, psychologically trained, PhD. I also have a technology-based business called SIPO. And SIPO is an Indigra symbol for justice. So it's all related to that obviously my soul's purpose on this earth is to work within the social justice realm. But SIPO, what it does is it's a technology-based business designed to help mitigate instances of discrimination in the workplace. So a lot of my work is geared towards helping Black individuals and people who are of historically underrepresented groups heal from racial trauma.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like you've been paying attention to a lot of underlying issues, and you've been just focusing on what the root cause is, and probably going even deeper into like generational effects and stuff like that, even further on than what the 70s and stuff like that. You probably want to go deep and deep into slavery, before slavery, and it sounds like you got a real deep, like deep thought process on this, and it sounds great to me already, honestly. So yeah, we could jump into the question, and it's basically right on topic with what you just said. I want to know like what made you decide to say, with these underlying things going on and so on, like what made you decide to say it's time to take a deeper look at how racial trauma has affected us? What happened that caused that for you?
I love that question. I get super energized because it's twofold. Like first, it's my own journey and my own struggle with racial trauma, and then the second was it hit me right in the middle of grad school. So I'm in my PhD program, learning a lot about trauma, learning about every aspect of trauma you can possibly imagine. But no one ever brought up racial trauma. The term wasn't even a term that was coined when I was in grad school in 2016. But we were learning a lot about sexual trauma. We were learning a lot, and not that these things are not important. It's absolutely important to work on all aspects of trauma, but but to be inside of a country where the history of it is steeped within the traumatization and the oppression of groups of people is very important. I felt like for me that I use my platform and my skill set to be able to address those issues. So that's it on a professional level. Like I was learning about these things, and no one's talking about the trauma that Black people experience on an everyday basis. On one of my videos a while ago, I mentioned, after doing some research, that the statistics are ridiculous. Black people experience 5 instances of discrimination every single day. So that's astronomically high for no one in my field to be talking about how do we heal this group of people who experiences trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma. And when I got into learning about the different ways that you can help someone who's been traumatized, the very first, the key core element, which is what the body tries to do immediately, is to seek safety, is to get away from that particular trauma. But if you look at the unique experience of Black people in America, 5 instances a day, like there's no opportunity to escape that. There's no opportunity for us to step away from that so we can have a time of reprieve to start that natural healing process. So we have to take charge of that ourselves and recognize the power that we have within us to help us heal from such a deep core injury like racial trauma. So for my own personal experience, this is again back in graduate school, I just found myself at a really desperate place with trying to reconcile the type of trauma that I was experiencing in my own personal life related to racism, and then the trauma that I was seeing every time I turned on the news or scrolled on Instagram. So it was really a need for me to heal myself, which brought it to the forefront of this. If I'm struggling this hard with something like this, and everyone statistically who looks like me is experiencing this at such a high level, then there's something that I need to do about that. First, I need to heal myself, and then I need to create ways to help others heal themselves.
I feel like something like racial trauma would be like categorized as like a psychological comorbidity, because it's like you probably wouldn't even catch on to certain things until you actually get into the situation and stuff like that. And I think it gets to the like small things, like I just got my hair braided, and then I'm thinking in the back of my head like, oh wait, am I going to be able to apply for this job with my hair braided? Little stuff like that is potentially like something that could start to turn into like trauma. Like, can I be myself? Like, can I just be can I have my natural hairstyle, or do I have to cut all my hair off and shave my whole head just so I can get a job? Like, and it's stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is what turns into, slowly turns into issue with identity, and all types of different things can happen from it. It could leap over into many different areas of life. And then I think the big thing for us is that these things in turn transition into how we treat each other. I think that's the biggest problem for it all for me.
100%. I would say it starts first with how we treat ourselves. Like, I categorize racial trauma as it's such a soul injury because it's a crime against humanity. It's literally a crime against the personhood that God created, an individual to be. And then so for society to reel against that's a deep soul injury. So I talked about before how racial trauma links to low self-worth. So I think the first area of concern is, how do we treat ourselves? Like, how do we look at ourselves? You talked about the backlash that you may face just from making a decision about your own hair. So within yourself, deep within, like, how has racial trauma shaped the way that you view yourself, shaped the very core of our individuality, the very essence of our self-concept? How has racial trauma went there and projected some falsehoods there? And I think that's the core, like that's the first place we need to go in order to seek that healing. And that's hard to do. And a lot of people will not do that. Can you imagine going to the very core of your essence, the very element of your soul, to go heal it? Like, that's a painful process. That is an incredibly painful process. And when you think about racial trauma, the foundation of that is rejection. So now you have to go to the very core essence of who you are and deal with rejection. That's deep. And not a lot of people want to do that because it's painful. It's incredibly painful. But I promise, from my own experience and the many times that I've helped others, the reward on the other side of that is incredibly beautiful. My God, you get to have a freedom, even within an oppressed society, that's unheard of. You get to have an element of self-worth and self-beauty that you would think that an oppressed group of people would not be able to have. And so that's the alchemy that I enjoy bringing to the forefront. And in my profession, in the helping field, many people who do the work that I do within different populations, any type of therapy or mental health they never highlight the important element that I think that's different within racial trauma, or how I approach it, is that I'm not healing you. I'm showing you how to heal yourself. And I think that in and of itself is counter to the self-concept that racial trauma tells us about ourselves, right? That we can't do anything. We have to look outside of ourselves for our divinity, for our spirituality. We have to look outside of ourselves for our healing. We have to look outside of ourselves for our self-concept, for our worth, for our beauty, what beauty is. And this rails against it, and it brings into the equation something that we have been told to disregard, which is the ancient African philosophical model. And that's my philosophical makeup, is that I'm bringing back, how did my ancestors view themselves? And I'm not talking about 16th century. I'm not talking about 15th century. I'm not talking about 14, 12, 11, or 10th century. I'm talking about my ancient ancestors before they interacted with colonizers. I want to go all the way back there. And I want to look at how did they view themselves? Because I think that's where the untaintedness of the self-concept is, that I need to rebuild myself on. So this is what I did, back in 2016. And that's the foundation that I use to help others heal themselves.
Yeah, that's basically, yeah, that's where all the liberation is going to start to kick in. And I think it's only one thing I want to say about that. I think you said that it's difficult to go on your self-healing journey, but it's also difficult to not go on it. It's just as difficult to sit around and accept and conform to the ways of the world that is right now. It's just as difficult. Only thing is different is that nobody's telling you to do that. That's the only difference. That nobody else is generally telling you, hey, do this, don't do that. You're just being indoctrinated into doing this, and it doesn't even feel good. Everybody's around you just doing it. So it's not even difficult. It's just not normal. It's just out of the norm. It's the same amount of pain you're gonna feel.
Mm-hmm. That's great. That's a great point. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And some people would tell you not to do that, right? Some people may even demonize the notion that you have the ability to heal yourself, exactly. or even gaslight you that because I've had people ask me, like, I don't feel sick. How do I know about if I have experienced racial trauma? And my response is that if you feel complacent with the notion of oppression, against people who look like you, then that means that you essentially have bought into the concepts of the oppressive engineering, within the systems that you interact with. And as a result, you have done exactly what the system is designed to do, is to have you internalize the false notion of white supremacy. And so you think the treatment of people who look like you, that's normal. That's how they should be treated. Right? You shouldn't have a gun on you, right? Then the police wouldn't shoot you. Or, even though it's legal for you to carry a gun, or, why were you running? All of these things that you hear people who are of historically underrepresented groups profess, then they themselves have internalized the false notion of white supremacy.
Right.
Well, that's perfect. That goes into our next question, which is, what is oppressive engineering, and just how common do you think it is in today's world?
Oppressive engineering, it simply means that every system that we interact with is designed to be oppressive. So I think sometimes people are just like, oh, these are just remnants of slavery or of the civil rights movement. This is why, these systems are still operating the way that they are. And it's an acknowledgement that they were designed to do that. That's exactly what they were designed to do. So they're designed to be oppressive to historically underrepresented groups, to Black people, to Indigenous people, to women. All of those things is not by accident. So oppressive engineering is the sense that when a system is being engineered and designed, it is doing so with the notion of oppressing a particular group of people. When it was a Black woman, a graduate student at MIT years ago, who was trying to warn the world about AI and the tools that were being created, that they are being created with bias in mind. If you remember, I don't know if you guys remember, there was a couple articles that came out when the automated hand soaps and hand sanitizer dispensers or even the automated faucets, like in bathrooms when you go into a public restroom, you just put your hands underneath there and the water's supposed to turn on. Well, what she was showing was that for Black people, sometimes it doesn't turn on immediately when you put your hand underneath there. And because the engineers who were creating these automated products were only programming the computer to recognize lighter skinned palms. So even something that simple, right? It's literally designed within the engineering of products. It's designed within the engineering of systems and so forth.
Yeah, I do think. I mean, like I said, I think I like I like the phrases that you put together. Are these all made by you? The phrases, the oppressive engineering, and the yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I was just thinking about how to explain this, and yeah, and the term came to me. I think about engineers and designers, and when they're grafting out, what this building or what this product is going to look like. They start at the foundational level, and so whatever's implemented in the foundation is what will be manifested in the end product.
Right, right. All right, so we're gonna keep going. We could talk about the oppression some more. So since you have experience in the field a lot, well, since you are in the field for real, how do you feel people should deal with fear and spiritual oppression? Like, what are your key ways? And I know you just said something that actually helps, which is go to the roots. If there's anything else you want to add on to that, you can.
Sure. I wanna know how you two are describing spiritual oppression, and we can talk about that afterwards. But first, I'll say fear. How do you address fear? I think that's such a powerful question. And I think this author by Frederick Dobson, he wrote a book called Levels of Energy, and he explains something that physicists have been saying for a long time, is that everything is energy, right? It's just varying different degrees of energy. So if you look at energetically, if everything is energy, so humans as well, and then if you break it down to the states of our mind is also energetic. Fear is a level of energy, and it is a very, very low level of energy. So when you think about like incorporating and even learning about the spirituality of the physical world and the unseen and physicalness of the spiritual world, like that yin and yang of that. So spirituality is the unseen physical, and physical is the seen spirituality, if you look at it like that. So diving a little bit deeper into what fear really is and why is it so perpetuated in today's society. I think if anyone is on a spiritual journey and seeking to learn more and to grow their knowledge related to that, looking into fear, why it's so popular as far as like the media is concerned. I mean, every time I scroll on the internet, it's something trying to make me afraid. I'm like, why? Why is that?
I don't pay attention to it no more, honestly.
Yeah, yes, exactly. I don't either. But again, like that's done, for a reason. And so like asking these questions is a really great way to kind of gain better understanding about the world around you. But I think for someone really struggling with fear, is to recognize that it is a low vibrational frequency, and that you have the power to master that essentially.
Yeah, I feel like fear is a good thing. I was just about to make a post about that because I'm not gonna say it's entirely a good thing, but there's a good part of fear that people need to realize. There's a lot of purpose alluding around fear. Whatever you're so scared of is probably most likely, the direction that you need to start focusing on what's going on and breaking it down to yourself and understanding like why are you so fearful of putting yourself out there and doing these things and being this great person and doing these things. 'Cause a lot of things that we're scared of is precisely exactly what we're supposed to do. I mean, unless it's staying on top of the Eiffel Tower or something like that. Whatever you're scared of is probably something that's going to make you successful tomorrow.
Yeah, that's a great point too. I remember thinking about like trying to help people realize like their purpose, or even when I was younger, thinking about my own purpose. And someone said that same thing. It's like whatever makes you really angry or scared to do, like that's where you need to look for like direction as far as what should you be doing, because it simply equates like to passion. It's kind of a director towards like what your passion is or what your passion lies in.
Right.
Great point.
Right.
Mhm.
Squeaky, you gonna ask the next question, right?
Oh, what is spiritual oppression now? I guess because I didn't answer that question.
Oh, spiritual. Well, oh, you asked us what asked me what spiritual oppression is. Well, I mean,
Yes.
for me,
How are you defining it?
spiritual oppression is just like basically being indoctrinated. That's spiritual oppression. You get one opinion from somebody, it's popular. You get one understanding from somebody, and it's popular, and then they take it and run with it, and that's it. They don't research information. They don't go into history enough. They don't read about anything else outside of a group of people. They have cult like behavior, or just transforming things, switching words around, changing things, making you believe things that are underliningly suppressing to yourself, to who you are as a person, who you are as just who you are as a being. That's spiritual oppression to me. Spiritually oppressing place can be a church that doesn't teach a good doctrine. Just a spiritual leader that just oppresses women and stuff like that, and just that's spiritual oppression to me, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So
And for me, spiritual oppression is basically being indoctrinated from a young age and being told one thing. And knowing that we're children, not knowing everything, we kind of just go off of what we're being told because we're taught that that is what you're supposed to believe. So now you're under the oppression of whoever is whoever is spiritually telling you this, that this is what you're supposed to believe. So now as you get older, this is what you believe. And now when you want to do the research and see outside of what you've been taught, you are chastised for doing such. So now you are under spiritual oppression officially, because it's like now you're going against what you've been taught your whole life, and you feel wrong, and then you become in fear. And fear is, not knowing what is known. You're stuck in the unknown. And I know your eyebrows are like, wait, what happened? What she
No,
said?
I love that. No, I love that. I
Yeah,
love,
so
yeah.
so that's what I mean. That's just my experience. That's my definition because of what I experienced. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I love that you coined that you all use that term spiritual oppression. I hadn't heard it before, so I just wanted to see how you all were categorizing it. But I think that flows right into being oppressed, right? An oppressed group of people. And so many people have said this though, but if you can control the identity of a deity for a group of people, then you can control, their psychological makeup for generations to come. So I think that's
Sure.
as well. Is that's what oppression and colonialization has done to many parts of the world and many groups of people, is controlling the narrative of who God is, what God looks like, what God deems appropriate, what God does not deem appropriate.
All of that is spiritual oppression to me. Anything that's tells you, yo, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that, and you trying to figure out why what's going on, and when you ask questions, you can't even ask them. You're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that. I'm like, wait a minute, where's all this restriction come from? Is this God, or is this some guy behind somewhere, some podium somewhere talking? Like, I don't like. Yeah, that's what it is for me. You know what I mean? That's what it is for me.
Yep. Yeah. So again, like I said, I think going back to like our indigenous healing practices and spirituality is a great way to heal and to regain, a lot of our self-worth that's been damaged, as a result of our experiences. So how did my ancestors view God? I'm gonna just always go back to that. I'm gonna just always go back to, how did our ancestors view spirituality? What did they say? And that's where I think for me, when I went on my healing journey, and 2016 from racial trauma, I literally had to analyze every aspect of my life and examine the false notion of white supremacy in every area of my life. And that had me looking at everything: how I view femininity, how I view womanhood, how did I view being a mother, how did I view being a wife, how did I view my relationship with God, how did I view God, period. Like, how did this particular falsehood integrate itself in all of those areas? And so for a long time, like, I was just analyzing all of that. I was self-reflecting in all of those areas. And I wanted to get so far away from that notion. I wanted to get so far away from the false notion of white supremacy engulfing every aspect of my being. And that was true freedom for me. I was literally liberating myself from all of that. So a big part of that is spirituality.
It's definitely a big deal. The spiritual oppression is a big deal. I mean, like certain relationships can't work of it because of it.
Yeah.
Some friendships can't work of it. Another thing too, because there's nothing wrong with having a relationship with God in the way that you feel is that's resonating with you. If it's resonating with you, that's great. But since people are separated into religion, that religion, this church, that church, this leader, that leader, it's a lot of separation amongst us, and we not elevating beyond, like, whatever teachings we're learning, we're not elevating beyond it and going to where the main thing in the Bible that I see is that we're supposed to love one another. That's like the most important law in the first place. So half the time people are following the Bible, but then they're not even following that law because somebody's not Christian or because they're not in a certain church. They don't love them the same way they love the other person. But the Bible doesn't say to do that. The Bible just says to just love each other. So we gotta start transforming these things we was taught and kind of like raising the vibration of them a little bit more, getting a little bit more knowledge from history. I don't know necessarily about everybody having to go so deep to their roots. I think you should, but you don't have to necessarily go there. You really have to. I feel like raising your vibration is the most important thing, and realizing, yo, wait, this is a low vibrational behavior, right? Even though it's religion, it's a low vibrational behavior I'm doing right now. Pardon me. It's a low vibration, so I need to watch when I'm doing low things, and just educate myself and just lift it up. I think it's becoming common knowledge now, which I'm happy about that.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. There's definitely a shift. And I think, most people who are tuned into that frequency
Well,
are able to experience that, or able to sense that. But there's definitely a shift.
The next question that we have here is, what's your advice for people dealing with PTSD and what are some solutions you may have?
So I think the first thing is to seek safety. So if you're dealing with trauma, then making sure that you're in a place that is safe, and watching out for triggers, things that are going to remind you of that particular trauma. When I'm thinking about racial trauma, I always recommend for people not to watch any disturbing videos, like the George Floyd video. Any act of violence against a Black person, I would say to stay away from that. If you're able to control, your environment to a certain degree, try and surround yourself with people who are healing, who are not going to traumatize you in that way. So if it's an abusive relationship, you think about it in that terms. So first thing would be to seek safety, to get to a place of safety. Create as much as you can if you have the power to do so within your own little environment. Create a safe place for yourself. And then the second thing would be to obviously to get some help. If you are able to, seek services within the community related to trauma, I think that's a really great resource. There are a lot of clinics that have options as far as even resources that they offer for free. So that would be really important. And then I think the next thing would be building a routine where you can care for yourself. So that self-care routine. So doing things that are healing to you. I mentioned in some content on Instagram, connecting back to nature is a really good place to start. So getting sunlight, charging up your melanin, grounding to the earth, so walking barefoot on the grass is a great way to help kind of balance out your system. figuring out what you eat, right? And figuring out ways that may be causing some issues within your body. So it's more of a holistic view, looking at your diet, getting back into nature, getting some help within the community. First, safeguarding yourself rather and your environment as best as you can. And then empowering yourself so that you can also, do the work of healing yourself when you're alone. When you're in your room and you're thinking about what happened, empowering yourself with knowledge and tools that you can use to cope and to help heal yourself as well.
I definitely think separating yourself from the things that are currently producing trauma is definitely an effective tool to use. Empowering yourself is definitely an important thing. Yeah, because you got to get your. Because I think I've seen people go through trauma. We've all been through different types of trauma, but I see that the main thing that causes the trauma is the fact that someone will feel stuck. They'll feel
Yeah.
like this is the only thing going on in the world. This is the only way people behave.
Yeah.
This is the end all be all right here. So I must be attracted to it. It's kind of like a spell is on them or something like that. And they think there's no way out when you literally could just walk around the corner and close the door and you're away from the nonsense. It's
Mhm.
crazy. It's that simple, but you wouldn't think it's that simple, but it actually is sometimes. Some situations it's not that simple. You living with someone and they crazy and you can't just leave and all that. I get that. But a lot of these situations you can literally just walk out the door, like literally walk out the door and just you're gone.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that comes from being uneducated as well, like not having the knowledge of the resources around you and not going outside of your box. Like you said, you just like cooped up in a room thinking that's the end all be all. But you do have a community of people who think like you, who are like-minded and wants to help. And that's exactly what we do here in New York. We have our freedom fighters. We have my holistic store, Squeaky Clean Juices and Gems, and we connect back to nature, and we pull away from, you know what I'm saying, the oppressive behaviors that is around us. You know
Right.
what I mean? And
Yeah.
we take it we take it from a holistic approach.
No, that's awesome. If you guys have a great ecosystem in New York that's healing to the community, that's amazing. And that's beautiful.
It's a lot of different ways to heal, you know. It's a lot of different ways to heal. I just feel like, it's definitely a mindset thing. It's definitely a mindset. That's why education, knowing about your ancestors is something that can help you, having more knowledge, studying psychology, just trying a different practice from what you used to. That could help you too, because the engineering, oppressive engineering has got your mindset indoctrinated to doing the things that is doing nothing but producing more trauma for you. You're behaving in a way that's helping it. You have to be manipulated for this to continue on. It's
Yep.
you are doing some of the things that create trauma for you. You know what I'm saying? Realistically, you're hanging around the people that cause trauma for you. You're attracting the energy that cause trauma for you. You're going places you're not supposed to be. You're not listening to your parents. You're not being productive. You're not doing something positive for the day. You're doing something negative for the day. You're slowly creating this. Unfortunately, if you don't catch yourself and realize that, wait a minute, I'm part of this problem. If you don't realize that part of it, then that's where the issue comes in and it gets too deep. You get too deep in there. But if you catch yourself, you can get out of it. You get out of it anytime.
Right.
Definitely taking accountability. Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. And then recognizing what changes can you make. I remember realizing, like, when I was going through my healing journey, that, man, just going to the grocery store, I would I would be literally assisting the oppressive system that I'm a part of. Like when I have my kids with me, um, and Dr. Joy DeGruy in her book Post Traumatic Slave Syndrome, she talks a lot about this. But it's like the mother who always wants her kids like close by, like don't disrupt anything in the grocery store. Come over here, get away from that stranger, get away from that person over there. Or, oh, I'm so sorry that my kids are, in your way, and so forth. And I'm like, why do I feel like I have to shrink in order for everyone else to feel comfortable? Like that's a part of oppression. Like I feel like I need to, bring my kids should not be, making a whole lot of noise. They should not be even just doing stuff that kids do, like giggling or just existing. That's what it was. I
Yeah.
realized that I was apologizing for my existence. whenever I went out into the public. And I was like, oh, that's a problem. And that's something that I can do. That's something that I recognize that I am willfully doing and willfully participating in the system that I literally can stop at this very moment. And from, you know what I'm saying? And from that day, like when I realized that, like my whole experience when I leave my house completely changed. And it was amazing. So just even
That's
that.
beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah. The mindset is, it's incredible with changing well, I don't feel like it's just a simple change, like snap on and off, but what working on changing your mind can do.
Yes.
Working on changing your mind from all of the things that we've been taught and all of the norms that we used to and stuff like that, and just shifting your mindset and keeping and making a conscious effort to keep going towards in a direction to make yourself bigger, make yourself smarter, wiser, healthier, stronger, more spiritually astute, etc. Those things just it just changes your life. You don't even have to be nowhere. You could just be in the middle. You could just be with the trees or whatever, and you feel like, all right, I'm somewhere special right now, because that mindset is just that. It's that grandiose. It's just
Right, because you could have easily taken the route as what they quote angry Black woman, right? And look what you chose to do with it. You chose to transmute that, because we like to stray away from the colorable law that that's an oppressive system as well with the colors. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The class of black and white and all of that. So
yes.
I appreciate that you took another approach, because I go through that with my son and my daughter every day in the stores.
Yes.
Trying to find myself apologizing, you know what I'm saying? There's just some interacting and existing. So I truly can relate to what you're saying.
Yes, absolutely. I know exactly what you mean.
All right, we'll be back. Creative Collection, NYC.